It's your fraud, don't, yeah, maso. It's your fraud, don't, yeah, maso. At an early age, I used to suffer. My first love, my lover. Tell me walk of right. At an early age, I used to suffer. My first love, my lover. Say na jam you walk for. My prema, kunya mede. Na jam you walk for seke teke. I didn't run me out for me dead. To me panati na hear me say it. My prema, kunya mede. Na jam you what is seke teke. I didn't run me out for me dead. To me panati na hear me say it. You for tell me how he did. For paradise, so drag I said okay. These are blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, some drag I say okay. You for tell me how he did. For paradise, some drag I say okay. These are blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, some drag I say okay.
Sam Smith.
Good morning, welcome to GN, the breakfast show with me, Jones Awuah. The time now is 8:39. It is Tuesday, the 18th of October, 2022. Hope you're well and safe. Before we proceed, just a bit of housekeeping. We are streaming live on Facebook, so you can go onto our Facebook page and watch us there on Facebook. Whilst you're there, make sure you share, all right? Make sure you share. Get involved with the discussions we're going to have this morning. It's always great to hear what people are saying. I keep saying this. Sorry, I was just looking at one message that just came through, all right, about this show. I keep saying this. This show is designed for us to have a dialogue. So make sure you do call in and send your text messages in. Let's hear your take on what we're discussing today. Whilst you're there on Facebook, please share. Right, now the numbers you need to call in 0203-735-8820 or 077-879-39958. These are the numbers you need. Right, here's what's coming up on today's show. We always begin the show by looking at the newspaper headlines here in the UK, and then we cross over across the continent of Africa, and then we focus on Ghana, looking at what's happening in Ghana. So, yesterday we spoke a lot about the ongoing illegal mining in Ghana, right? And then after this show, I received a few phone calls and text messages, and people were saying that they like the fact that we've done a lot about this. Girl, I'm saying we should continue doing it. And I said we'll do our best to carry on talking about it, because let's face it, it is devastating, isn't it? It is devastating. But on today's show, yesterday we spoke about it briefly, myself and Kofi Ali, we spoke about it. The cough syrup scandal that killed 69 children in Gambia. How did it end up in Gambia, and who should we blame? Who is to be blamed? Who is to be blamed? And then here in the UK, who is in control? Liz Truss or Jeremy Hunt? The new exchequer, or is the Prime Minister still in control? Priscilla will be joining us very, very soon. Priscilla Mwipo, broadcaster and political analyst, will be joining us. Priscilla is also a good friend of mine. Why am I mentioning? Priscilla, that's her name. Yes, Priscilla will be joining us very, very soon to talk about this. Plus, in Ghana, the president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in an interview where the journalist asked him a question, the journalist rather said to him that there are some people who are not happy with the way things have been going, and as such, they're planning to vote against the NPP party in 2024. And the president is saying threats to vote against the NPP in 2024 don't frighten me, according to Akufo-Addo. And I'm asking this morning, what is the big fuss if the president says that? Because, you know, people are talking about it. I'm asking, what's the big fuss? Plus, we bring you trending stories across the continent of Africa. That's what we're going to discuss today. Yesterday, I received a phone call again after the show saying that I was a bit harsh on Liz Truss. Apparently, I more or less finished her off. And I'm saying, well, it's not anything new. You know, if you've been following this show, you know my position, my stance on Liz Truss. Not even the Conservative Party, Liz Truss. Again, you knew about my position on Boris Johnson. And the new Chancellor has more or less thwarted Liz Truss's economic plans. Literally, she's done a massive U-turn. And now I'm calling her U-turn Truss. She's done a massive U-turn. And then yesterday, at the House of Commons, she was there. She was supposed to be there to answer a serious question by the opposition, from the opposition party, Labour. She didn't show up. She did not show up till later on. To which, you know, a Labour MP asked, "Where is she? Is she hiding under the desk?" Then she showed up later on, okay, when the Chancellor was giving his speech. And then it looked as if the Chancellor in front of the dispatch box looked very much like the Prime Minister. And Liz Truss is just sitting there like a school kid whose parents have just told them off. You know, when you do something bad, or for instance, right, back in the days of school. So I went to a boarding school when I was young. So that more or less shaped my life. And then when I came here, and my dad would give me a strong lecture about, you know, being on time and making sure everything is in order. You have your bags, your books, all the necessary things you need to go to school, right? And then imagine sitting in the car. Your dad is just giving you this lecture, okay? And sit in the car, then you realize, oh gosh, I left my bag at home. And then you just have this look on your face. You know, you put on this look on your face like, oh gosh, I know what he's going to say. Here we go. That was Liz Truss yesterday. And if you look at the newspaper headlines today, I'm just glancing over at the Independent, the Eye, saying that Hunt takes charge as Prime Minister fears the exit. Put it this way, put it like this, right? If I was a novice, if I knew nothing about the British, if I knew nothing about British politics, and it was my first time watching the Prime Minister's questions, I would have assumed that Jeremy Hunt was the Prime Minister and Liz Truss was a cabinet minister. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. And you know, politics is a dirty game. Politics is a dirty game. You've got to have a tough skin to be in politics. And it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, let's look at the newspaper headlines here. I'll come back. Don't worry. I'll come back to my rants again. The newspaper headlines here. We'll begin with the Eye. Hunt takes charge as PM fears the exit. Most of today's papers lead with the Chancellor's reversal of tax cuts as the Prime Minister tries to rally support for her own survival. The Eye says Liz Truss has 48 hours to save her premiership, with the next flashpoint being this week's Prime Minister's question. She is defiant in public, but has privately acknowledged that she faces a battle to survive this week, the paper says. Is there any, can we draw a parallel from Liz Truss's premiership to that of Boris Johnson's? And when I say this, I just mean, the chaos and the uncertainty and the never-ending problems. And one thing I can take away from what's happening with Liz Truss is that, and compare that to Boris Johnson. So with Boris Johnson, I think the MPs and, his ministers, in the end it was his ministers, right, that brought him down. They gave him enough time, a lot of chances. They went out to defend the indefensible. So Boris Johnson lies about the Partygate. He wasn't there, right? Then it turns out he was there. Then these MPs, these cabinet ministers, will come out to defend him. Liz Truss, is she going to stick by her policies? Absolutely, she says. There's no turning back. Like, what's the name? The infamous phrase by, Margaret Thatcher. This woman is not for turning. This lady is not for turning, right? Kwesi Kwarteng, the ex-chancellor, says that government is still on course with its policies. And he's not going anywhere. Then what happens? Kwesi Kwarteng gets fired. What happens with Liz Truss saying that she's not going to change her policy, there's not going to be any U-turn? What happens? We get the first U-turn, then the second U-turn. And now, a new chancellor has come and more or less reversed all her economic policies. And we've only had a few Conservative MPs that have come out to call for her resignation. And this is what happens. So probably her job might be safe. She's bought herself a bit more time. Onto the next hiccup. Onto the next issue. Then you see that, all gloves will be off and they will just be out for her. So if she's thinking that she needs to survive this week, and that will be it, then I'm afraid she's got a lot coming. And The Guardian, Hunt rips up Prime Minister's plans in outstanding U-turn on tax. I'm telling you, Jeremy Hunt looks like the man. Financial Times has a picture of Jeremy Hunt in front of the dispatch box. It says, Truss future on knife edge after Hunt rips up her economic strategy. The Daily Mail usually supports, they were, probably the first newspapers to call Liz Truss as becoming, as the person to replace Boris Johnson, and they've always supported her. When things were going really, really bad, they decided to, lead with a totally different story on their front page. But let's see what they have on the front page. And this is the Daily Mail. In office, but not in power. So who was it? Who was it that coined this phrase? Is it Brino or Bino? So it means Brexit in name only, right? Bino. Is it Brino? I'm sure it's Bino or Brino. Anyway, I'll find out. But anyway, it means the acronym stands for Brexit in name only. Implying that you said, yes, we've got Brexit, but nothing actually shows that Brexit has been done. We're not, the impact, nothing has changed, essentially. And I think it was the former Chancellor, under the leadership of David Cameron, Simon Osborne, that said, Prime Minister in name only. So essentially, she's not in power. She's just there. She's just a figurehead. The ceremonial Prime Minister. According to the Daily Mail, it's not me, right? I'm not saying this. This is the Daily Mail. In office, but not in power, according to the Daily Mail. Ms. Truss has warned on Monday night that she was in office, but not in power, says the Daily Mail. The Prime Minister acknowledged that she had gone too far and too fast with her economic strategy and has been trying to rally support from her MPs, the paper reports. Let's look at the Metro. The Axeman cometh, says the Metro. The Axeman cometh, declares the Metro, referencing Mr. Hunt's shredding of the Prime Minister's economic strategy. The paper says Liz Truss watched in silence and stared straight ahead as her new Chancellor announced the changes on Monday. The Sun, Liz sits in silence as Hunt rips up her budget. The ghost Prime Minister. You gotta love these newspapers. I mean, this is just brutal. Totally brutal. The front pages. I don't think Liz Truss will be reading the newspapers today. I don't think so. And in a way, I kind of feel sorry for her. I do, on a personal level. Because I think, and we cannot overlook the fact that, this is just purely based on my opinion, okay? I think the Conservative Party are a bit harsh simply because she's a woman. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, if you compare Liz Truss to Mrs. May to that of Boris Johnson, let's look at the Daily Mirror. Humiliated is the Daily Mirror. The paper says that Prime Minister's own MPs are plotting a coup. One Tory MP said Ms. Truss has poured petrol over everything. Okay. Let's look at the Daily Express, another paper that supports the Tory. Truss, I'm sorry, we went too far and too fast. Okay. The Daily Telegraph, we must take decisions of eye-watering difficulty. Now, you see, this is my problem with this guy, Jeremy Hunt. And again, they will use this as an excuse to bring in the craziest cuts to public spending ever. Jeremy Hunt said it himself, that when the Conservatives came in power back in 2010, off the back of the economic crisis, they took strong decisions to make cuts, and in the end, it was disastrous because they went too far. And this is my biggest worry. Right now, they keep saying the most important thing is to show stability. The Times, Hunt's mere copper could mean 5,000 fuel bills. Okay. Families could face up to 5,000 energy bills from April after the Prime Minister was forced to rip up her economic plans, says the Times. Mr. Hunt announced on Monday that the energy price guarantee will come to an end in April. The paper reports that Ms. Truss is fighting for her survival after 6 U-turns on her plans in one day. And this is funny because I remember Liz Truss actually having a go at the Labour Party in terms of this whole energy crisis, and essentially this was Labour's plan for it to go up to in April, and then to review it. And she said, this policy was ridiculous. So here comes in the new Chancellor, who does exactly the same thing that Labour wanted to do. It doesn't get any better, does it? The Daily Star. Lettuce Liz on a leaf support. So they've got a picture of a lettuce implying that that's Liz Truss on life support. So anyway, if you think I'm harsh, I mean, look, it's not just me. Look at the front pages. They really, really going in for Liz Truss. Absolutely. And yesterday, the fact that she turned up late to the House of Commons was telling. Why? Because she was engaged in some meeting or whatever. I mean, I don't know who advised these leaders, these people. I don't know. Listen, we know the turmoil that the party is in, or her government is in at this moment. The last thing you want to do is to give an indication that you're hiding. And I'll find that clip and play it to you so you can listen to what was happening. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with our discussion here. And also, I'll play you, I've spoken about this in the past, the AFCFTA. We'll see if we'll have time to talk about it. Plus, we're still in the month of Black History Month, okay? So I'm going to play you a clip. This was when I traveled to Ghana, I think back in 2019. I had the privilege to go to the Elmina Castle, and I documented my travel to the castle. I'll play it. It's Black History Month, okay? So we'll play that very, very soon. This is GN Radio, the breakfast show with me, Jones. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we continue with our discussion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
La Cogne, Anne. Oh yo yo, yeah 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 yeah. Oh yo 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 yeah yeah yeah. What you do me, you don't try. You told me, baby, we outside. I fed yet in a bay, I'm inside. Sorry, na can't be tell me why. And then you know me a day online, waiting for your text, so I know fi I. Nkaba mami post a goodbye. I didn't yachi, I want my style, but I forgive you. Na kwa ukwe. Yeah, me fa ukras, yeah. You don't say I got you. And stop crying, just sweet. Sleep well, my lover. I will be fine, my lover. And my love for you be forever. My brain, konya me de. Ojami wako seke teke. I didn't run me, I come me de dem. See me pa nothing, I hear me say yeah. My brain, konya me de. Ojami what is seke teke. I didn't run me, I come me de dem. See me pa nothing, I hear me say yeah. You for tell me how he did. For paradise, soundtrack, I said, peace and blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, soundtrack, I said, you for tell me how he did. For paradise, soundtrack, I said, peace and blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, soundtrack, I said, it's ya fraud, don't, ya maso. It's ya fraud, don't, ya maso. At an early age, I Jesus apart. My first love, my lover. Tell me what go fra. At an early age, I Jesus apart. My first love, my lover. Say na jami wako. My brain, konya me de. Jami wako seke teke. I didn't run me, I come me de dem. See me pa nothing, I hear me say yeah. My brain, konya me de. Jami what is seke teke. I didn't run me, I come me de dem. See me pa nothing, I hear me say yeah. You for tell me how he did. For paradise, soundtrack, I said peace and blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, soundtrack, I said you for tell me how he did. For paradise, soundtrack, I said peace and blessings for your man, na me pray. From paradise, soundtrack, I said Sam Smith. yeah. What you do me, you don't try. You told me, baby, we outside. I fed yet in a bay, I'm sorry, na can't be tell me why. And then you know me a day online, waiting for your text, so I know fi I. Nkaba mami post a goodbye. I didn't yachi, I want my style, but I forgive you. Na kwa ukwe, na me fa ukras, yeah. You know say I got you. And stop crying, jai sweet. Sleep well, my lover. I will be fine, my lover. And my love for you be forever. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wako seke teke. Adiena rami ako mi dedem. Timi panati na ye mi say ye. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wati seke teke. Adiena rami ako mi dedem. Timi panati na ye mi say ye. You for tell me how he did. La konye. Ane. Oh yo, yeah. Oh yo, yeah. What you do me, you don't try. You told me, baby, we outside. I fed yet in a bay, I'm sorry, na can't be tell me why. And then you know me a day online, waiting for your text, so I know fi I. Nkaba mami post a goodbye. I didn't yachi, I want my style, but I forgive you. Na kwa ukwe, na me fa ukras, yeah. You know say I got you. And stop crying, jai sweet. Sleep well, my lover. I will be fine, my lover. And my love for you be forever. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wako seke teke. Adiena rami ako mi dedem. Timi panati na ye mi say ye. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wati seke teke. Adiena rami ako mi dedem. Timi panati na ye mi say ye. You for tell me how he did. For paradise, soundtrack, I said okay.
All right. Of course, to our listeners, people watching us on Facebook, we can start the conversation, can't we? And then once we come back live on the studio, on the airwaves, others can join the discussion there. This is GN Radio, the breakfast show with me, Jones Awuah. You can call in 0203-735-8820 or 0203-286-0185. Alternatively, you can send a text message 077-8-793-9958. These are the numbers you need to get in touch. I've seen a few text messages coming in. Very soon we'll have Priscilla, and Priscilla is a broadcaster, political analyst, will be joining us very soon to talk about what's happening here, this whole political saga, and how long Liz Truss can actually remain in power. Yes. All right, let's see if we can get Priscilla on now. It's interesting times ahead for the Conservative Party. Well, one would assume that we should have a general election. We should. And this is why sometimes this whole democracy or this political system of governance here, sometimes it's a bit confusing and it doesn't make sense. But this is what we all voted for. I mean, this country, the UK, doesn't have a written constitution. And the democracy practice here is representative democracy. So, we vote for the MPs to represent us in Parliament. And majority of MPs equals, the seats you win in Parliament. That means you get to form the next government. And the thing is, when a prime minister is booted out of office by his MPs or ministers, then what happens is it's up to the party to elect somebody else to take charge. And that's just down to the party members, who make up about, I think, probably about just 1% of the population, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So in effect, Liz Truss's policies were never voted by the people. She never came to us and said, hey, by the way, I still want to remain the next, your prime minister. Let's go for a general election. This is what I'm going to do, right, if you vote for me. She never did that. So she kind of, in a way, well, not in a way, she's in there off the back of Boris Johnson's hard work. All right, speaking about Liz Truss, she did an interview. And she's saying that she will be the next person to lead the Conservative Party into the next general election. I mean, Boris Johnson did say that himself, didn't he? And then what happened? Let's listen.
I'm sticking around because I was elected to deliver for this country, and that is what I am determined to do.
And will you lead the Conservatives into the next general election?
I will lead the Conservatives into the next general election.
Definitely.
Well, look, yeah. I'm not focused on internal debates within the Conservative Party.
But you need to be, don't you? You need to be in order to stay in office.
The important thing is that I've been elected to this position to deliver for the country. We are facing very tough times. We simply cannot afford to spend our time talking about the Conservative Party rather than what we need to deliver. And that is my message to my colleagues. I do want to accept responsibility and say sorry for the mistakes that have been made. I wanted to act, but to help people with their energy bills, to deal with the issue of high taxes, but we went too far and too fast. I've acknowledged that. I've put in place a new Chancellor with a new strategy to restore economic stability. And now what I'm focused on is delivering for the public.
Do you remember yesterday on this show? And I spoke about my friend and I after Liz Truss's interview with the journalist, right? And well, she gave a speech, and then after the speech, journalists had the opportunity to ask her questions. This was off the back of the former Chancellor being sacked, being given his P45. And I said to, and when the journalist asked Liz Truss a question, all she could come back with was she's focused on delivering. Delivering stability, economic growth for this country. And with this interview, this clip I just played, right, she just shot herself in the foot. She could have done what she did later on. The journalist asked her, will you be the leader? Or will you be the person to lead the Conservative Party into the next general election? All she should have said was, right now, I don't think the country or anyone wants a general election. We've got serious issues that we need to tackle. And I would appreciate it. I know you want to sell newspapers. I know you want the breaking stories. I know you want your quick soundbites. But for now, let's just focus on the most important thing at hand, which is sorting out this economic crisis that we find ourselves in. Simple. This is why, this whole nonsense about being a leader, you need to come across as being firm, strong, courageous, positive. I mean, you need to pick your moment. And that's all she should have done. Don't get yourself in a mix talking about you're going to lead the Conservative Party into the next general election, when we all know that you might be out of the door by the end of the week. I don't know. She just doesn't seem to get it. She keeps saying that she gets it, but I don't think she does. I don't think she does at all. It's crazy. It's just crazy. So now, if she doesn't survive this week, or if she doesn't survive at all, right? And then, journalists will always do this. They will go back and say, look, it was only a few weeks ago she was saying this to the BBC, and now she's out of a job. Again, another U-turn. Dear, oh dear. Dear, oh dear. Anyway, we'll come back to this story, and then we'll look at the issue with the cough syrup in Gambia. And then, of course, the current president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is saying that the fact that people are saying they will not vote for the NPP party come 2024 election doesn't really concern him. He's okay. I read comments. Some people were saying, yeah, it won't concern him really. He won't care because he's finished his term. So why should it concern him? We're still in the month of Black History Month. And I just want us to listen to this mini documentary that I did with my trip to the Elmina Castle. But before I do so, let me just bring this to your attention. The UK government's new energy support schemes could save the average household around $1,400 a year. As part of this, all households in Great Britain are eligible for a £400 discount to help the cost of energy bills this winter. The Energy Bills Support Scheme will be paid in installments over 6 months, starting in October, and you won't be asked to pay the money back. If you use a traditional prepayment meter, make sure your energy supplier has your up-to-date contact details so you can receive the discount on time. Your supplier will send you voucher by SMS, text, email, or post. You will be told where to redeem your discount, which could be your nearest post office or PayPoint store. Remember, you will never be asked to share your bank details to receive the discount. Visit gov.uk/help for households to find out more. So this is part of the government scheme to alleviate the pressure of the energy crisis. Now, back to the matter at hand. I'm going to have Priscilla joining us very, very soon. But for now, soon as we're still in Black History Month, let's take a quick listen to this documentary that I did in Elmina Castle.
So today on the program, we're taking a trip to Elmina Castle, a historical building. It was built by the Portuguese and taken over by the Dutch, and subsequently the British took over. It was actually an establishment for trading purposes. It played a key role in the Atlantic slavery. Today, we will embark on the journey that some of our people took to a destination they never knew and never returned.
Elmina is situated in the central region of Ghana. This town dates her history to the 1300s. Elmina, Edina Anumansa, or Amankwakro are names of one ancient town in today's modern Ghana. History has it that three cousins, Techi, Sam, and Kwa Amankwa, are believed to have migrated from Walata Empire in ancient Mali with their people. They settled briefly at Obutukor, now Techiman, in the Brongahafo region, and finally made it down to Eguafo, a village about 20 kilometers from Elmina. The people of this town were predominantly farmers, but today, fishing and salt making are the economic drive of Elmina.
Now, as I'm walking to this building, I don't really know what to expect. So I'm very keen to find out for myself the Elmina Castle.
The first Europeans to arrive at the then Gold Coast were the Portuguese in 1471. On 20th January 1482, the Portuguese met with the chief Nana Kwame Kweje Ansa and the elders to negotiate for a land to build for trading purposes. However, the chief Nana Kwame Ansa rejected the Portuguese proposition. He expressed his aversion for a permanent settlement. The chief said friends were to be better friends if they were not to live together, but would see each other occasionally. He also cited differences in lifestyle and culture as possible grounds for friction, and as typical of an African chief, he used the sea and the land to emphasize his point. The chief said the sea and the land are neighbors and are always at variances and contending who shall give way, the sea with a great force attempting to subdue the land, and the land with the same strength resolving to oppose the sea. With this argument, the king refused the Portuguese proposal. However, upon the Portuguese insistent persuasions and their hope of peaceful coexisting, the chief granted their request. This was the first time a title land had legally been transferred by a West African chief to a European. The plot on which the castle stands was a huge rock that was believed to be a sacred place of some of the gods of the land. 11 years after the Portuguese had first visited Elmina, their castle was built. The Portuguese went ahead with their noble trade intentions until the early 16th century, when the worst of crimes against Africans started. This is widely known as the transatlantic slave trade. It is indeed from Africa alone, over 400 years, her people were subjected to the worst inhuman atrocities that the continent and Africans all over have not been able to overcome.
I've just come out from the Portuguese church and already I'm just trying to prepare myself mentally for what is ahead.
During the Portuguese era at the Elmina Castle, slaves were assembled at the main courtyard for auctioning. Before the captives moved to the dungeons, examinations were conducted to determine the captives' ages. Sometimes a double-edged pin instrument was put into the captive's mouth to force his mouth to open so that his teeth could be counted to determine his age. After the examinations, the captives were taken to the dungeons. The coast of West Africa had been notoriously termed the white man's grave due to the rate at which the Europeans died of diseases such as malaria and yellow fever. The Europeans never brought their wives in the initial stages, and since they could not stay without women, the soldiers, merchants and governors sexually assaulted the female captives in the dungeons.
The governor stood up there where he ordered the soldiers to release all the female captives to this courtyard so that he will just fetch water from this reservoir, bath over here and move this way.
After this humiliation, she was dressed, fed and taken up a flight of stairs and through a trapdoor of the inner courtyard called private access to the governor's bedroom. After the rape, the woman was taken back to the dungeons. Some of these women became mistresses of the governors and stayed in the castle longer. Those who became pregnant were subsequently freed. Sadly, since the Africans in the dungeons came not only from today's Ghana but also from Togo, Burkina Faso, the Ivory Coast and a host of other places, when these women were freed, they could not return to the village where they had originated. The captives were held in dungeons for an average of 1 or 2 months, depending on the availability of ships to take them away. In the dungeons, they were given food and water, sometimes twice a day, but just enough to keep them alive. When the ships came, the women who were sold were exited to a room. The men were made to join them after passing through a transit dungeon. The men and women finally entered a room, now known as the Room of No Return. It was in these last rooms that the men and women saw each other for the first time since they had been brought to the dungeons. This would be the first and the last time the men and women who were held captives in a dungeon will see each other as they make their way to the door of no return and finally enter the ship to begin another dreadful and despicable journey to unknown places in the world.
So I finished it.
Right, that was for our Black History Month, right? It was a documentary that I did when I went to Ghana, Elmina Castle, and I decided to actually document my visit there. But now let's turn our attentions to matters at home. Before we played this clip, we were talking about the Prime Minister, the survival of the Prime Minister. And joining me to discuss this is Priscilla Nwikpo, a broadcaster and also a political analyst. Priscilla, good morning.
Good morning, Jones. How are you today?
I'm good. I wish I could say the same for Prime Minister Truss, or should I say Prime Minister in waiting, Jeremy Hunt. But this is where we are, Priscilla. We spoke a lot about what's happening within the Conservative Party, and now it looks as if the lady who more or less presented herself as the Iron Lady herself seems to be something other than the Iron Lady. Yesterday, she was missing in action, and the fact that the Chancellor took to the dispatch box to talk about the budget and also ripping apart majority of her economic policies was sad. It was sad because here we are. You had the Prime Minister came to the House of Commons late, and she was just sitting there, just looking like somebody that's lost. Earlier, I gave this example. Like, I remember when my dad used to lecture me, Priscilla. When you're going to school, these are the stuff you need. Make sure you have the necessary stuff you need to go to school. And then on your way, sitting in the back of the car, you realize that you left your bag at home. And you're thinking, how am I going to tell this man without him batting my head off? So you just sit down, just gazing, just thinking like you're lost. You're lost in translation. And that was what I saw yesterday with Liz Truss. I don't know how long she's going to stay in office for, but for now she's still there, Priscilla.
She is indeed. And you know what, Jones? Thank you for having me, first and foremost. Something tells me that she's not going to go that easily.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say that is because I think we're all fed up now. We're all conservative, prime minister changing fatigued. And I think we all want a general election.
Yeah.
So I think we're at the point now where if they should push her out, they're going to put themselves in a very challenging position. Hunt or no hunt, Sunak or no Sunak, we're tired, we're fed up, we've had enough of all of them now. And the country is at the point where it's just like, you know what, we may not, Starmer may not be what we want, or, you know, he may be more of the same, but we might just want to give him a chance. So I don't think that they're going to take the risk of trying that, although they're so brazen that they obviously think they can get away with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't think that performance that we saw yesterday, would they have done it if it was Boris Johnson or any other male politician? Yeah. I doubt that they would have done that. They have utterly humiliated this woman, primarily because she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody feels comfortable bullying her.
Yeah.
And I have to say this, I don't agree with the narrative that her policies were so bad or that they were destructive.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. Because I don't understand how giving hope to those at the bottom of the food chain can be such a bad thing that, you know, it throws the economy, according to them. It causes it to bust. I don't agree with that, because the prescription that Boris and Sunak left in the first instance was one of bust. It wasn't just one that was just going to was a gentle bust. It was going to be very, very explosive for everybody. So I don't understand how we've gone from that to blaming Mrs. or is she Mrs. Truss or Elizabeth Truss anyway. Yeah. I don't know how we've gone from that to blaming her for the total collapse and the problems. It just doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of people are carried away by the narrative, are carried away by what they're hearing every day. And, you know, everybody is jumped on the bandwagon, she must go, she must go, she must go. Really?
But
I think
in a way, Priscilla, don't you think she's more or less put herself into this position? Because what I get from her is that, you know, she comes across as she doesn't even believe in what she's trying to sell to us. And again, I mean, yesterday she did an interview with the BBC, and, you know, they asked her, will you lead the Conservative into the next general election? And she, you know, off the cuff, she went, yeah, she will be. And I thought, gosh, like, come on, Liz, you know this is a trap. All you have to do is just put these guys in their place. And, you know, I've said this to my listeners this morning. Like, you know, I know you want your breaking news and your sound bites, but here we are, we're facing economic challenges that we need to focus on. I'm sure this is what the British people want to focus on. And, you know, she said, yes, she will lead the Conservative Party to the next general election. And then I think later on something clicked in her head and she went, you know what, actually, the most important thing for the British people is sorting out the energy crisis, and which I thought, this should have been your answer. And she kept repeating the same thing. I'm here to deliver. I'm here to deliver economic growth, and people have just, just keep bashing it. I mean, I get it that probably, it's not her strength. It's not one of her strongest points to be able to think on her feet and talk. But I just think that she hasn't helped herself at all in the way that she's carried herself.
I agree with you, because I also observed that any time she affirms anything, she's literally torn to shreds.
Yeah.
So, they hang on to that, they pick up that affirmation, and then they begin to rip her to shreds. How could she have said that? Maybe she have said it this way, or she could have did it. So I agree with you that perhaps her advisors should have noted that by now.
Yeah.
And help her to deflect, not affirming anything, unless it gets taken out of, it's used to flog her, as it were.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine the pressure that she's under and what she's having to contend with at this minute. It looks to me as though there's some kind of wrestling for her job, and she's not being allowed in any way, shape or form. She hasn't been given a second to do this job, whether it's the king saying, "Oh dear, you back again so soon," or
I'm so sorry.
Or the economic experts.
Yeah. I mean, look, Priscilla, I was sorry to interject there. I think yesterday I said it as well. The moment she says something, they just get the economists online, on TV, on radio.
They're just on hand waiting to attack.
But then I remember during the Brexit, the referendum, when Michael Gove said we're sick and tired of experts, and everybody just took it on the chin. We don't want to listen to experts. But for Liz Truss, I said it.
The man.
Yeah, I said it. We cannot deny the fact that because she's a woman too, it's a factor that they're really, really out for her.
They are. It's for me, it's painful to watch. The way she's been treated, as you know, I'm not a fan of Liz Truss. I never have been. But when I see the way she's being treated, I feel no. Somebody has to defend her. Somebody has to. I'm seeing it from a different angle, and I don't think that we're seeing things from the reality of things. Suddenly Jeremy Hunt is jumping in to be the man that's going to save us. Come on.
The man that absolutely ruined the NHS.
Thank you. So he's come on suddenly, all of a sudden, calmly speaking, I'm going to do this and this and that. And I'm listening to him and I'm thinking to myself, they're saying that he's cut £32 billion. The Conservative government have been cutting since 2011.
Yeah. And there's a clip of Jeremy Hunt himself saying when they came into power off the back of the financial crisis, they went on a cutting spree to the point where it went too far, and in the end it was disastrous.
So they've been cutting for the last 11 years. So, and people are at their wits' end. You're piling on more taxes and asking them to pay from money they don't have.
Yeah.
How is that a good policy? How do we clap for that? My basic economic, because I'm not an economist and I can't claim to know, but the basic economic that I've come to understand is it's been about supply and demand. I think it's where we all are at, right?
Yeah.
And they've told us over and over and over that we, the public, needs to have money in our pockets to go out and spend in order for the economy to be taken over nicely. That's my basic understanding. So when we're at this point now where we are we've cut everything and we've lifted the taxes so high that people don't even have the money to pay the taxes, how much more extra in their pockets, not to mention to buy food. How then is our economy going to tick over? Why are we clapping for this? How can people be clapping and saying that, thank God for that, he's rescued the economy, and, Liz Truss has to go. She was an absolute, I don't get that. I'm completely lost. Somebody help me.
I mean, look, on the other side, Priscilla, I mean, we had this discussion, didn't we? And I said that, look, once a Lib Dem is always a Lib Dem. And I think, just by, just pure observation, I think her initial policy, which was not to tax the rich, right, the 45p tax cuts, this was fundamental parts of conservatism, okay? And then at the same time, helping, the poor, the people at the lower end. And then trying to borrow to make up for the deficit. And essentially, this is something that Labour will probably do. Labour will tax the rich and also borrow. And I think these conservatives realized that, no, this is against our fundamentals, and went straight after her. And, I mean, it doesn't help the fact that she's not able to, stand strong and be firm, like the Iron Lady, who said that, this lady's not for turning. And, everything just collapsed around it. I think that she was forced to sack Kwesi Kwarteng, and also, again, forced to bring in Jeremy Hunt to save her job. And
I think she looks like she was her hands were tied behind her back, and she had been, pressed against the wall by her neck. She does look that way. Yeah. You see, for Margaret Thatcher, the lady was not for turning because the lady won elections.
And that's the thing.
She was voted in by the public. Yeah. So it wasn't easy for them, and she was an election winner. And so it wasn't easy for them to be able to bully her with that with that much ease, But Liz, on the other hand, is voted in by party members. Yeah. And so they feel that they can do it's easier for them to pin her up against the wall, as they have done, twisted her arm and made her to go out and apologize and humiliate her, utterly humiliate her. I think they want to push her to the point where she should give up. But I hope she doesn't. It can't be easy for her, but I hope she doesn't, because I don't know I can't. Jeremy Hunt coming in and, reversing almost all with so much joy, and, he's so proud of that. I keep thinking about what that means in reality for the masses. Yeah. And for me, it does not. Yeah. It's not comfortable.
It's not good. It's not good.
It's not comfortable. So I can't, I can't imagine having Hunt as Prime Minister, or any of those conservatives that believe that we should be raising more taxes. We've been raising taxes ever since their arrival, and to think that for 11 solid years, with all the cuttings and all the tax rises, we are no better. We just get our position, our situation gets worse year after year after year. I think that, we must be able to question that, to say, surely this policy is not working. At what point does that realization set in? At what point? I suppose the masses don't get a look in right now, because the media is singing the same song. Nobody's speaking on behalf of the masses. Nobody's examining the impact of this.
What about Labour, Priscilla?
Labour, really, they've not really been an option with Keir Starmer, have they? Labour currently has deep-rooted issues at the moment. Their issue of racism, it's the infighting that they've got going on. You've got Labour candidates complaining that they've been demoted. They can no longer. They were deselected, and so they can't run for elections in their wards or in their constituencies. And so, there are all those issues bubbling with Labour. And the fact that Keir Starmer doesn't come across as being, up until now, he wasn't trusted.
Yeah.
And nobody would have given him a chance. But suddenly now, given the whole narrative surrounding Liz and what's going on, Labour is suddenly looking, there was a poll out yesterday that suggested that if we should go to a general election, the Conservatives will be decimated.
Yeah.
And it will be, all the blues will flip to red. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think they would dare to go to a general election. They would dare to take the risk of Liz. They want to back her up into a corner where she says it herself. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's why they're humiliating her as much as they are. But I hope that she can stand. It seems like a coup to me, but Labour, I don't know if I trust Keir Starmer. I don't think we're going to get any better. I really don't.
All right, Priscilla, always a pleasure talking to you. We see what unfolds.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was Priscilla Awuah. She's a broadcaster and also a political analyst and a very good friend of mine. So there you have it. Now let's look at other stories. Which one? All right, let's do the cough mixture story, the scandal. And the question we're asking this morning is simple, okay? The cough syrup scandal that killed 69 children in the Gambia. How did it end up in the Gambia, and who should we blame? And then also threats to vote against the New Patriotic Party in 2024 does not frighten me, according to Akufo-Addo. Now, a lot of people are making a big deal about this particular thing, but we're asking this morning, what is the big fuss about what the president said? What is it? What is the big fuss? I mean, reading some stories earlier, going on social media, social media is funny. You go down the rabbit hole and you realize that you can see the real comments from party foot soldiers. And then every now and again, you come across somebody that seems to be a bit neutral. And usually the party soldiers, the foot soldiers' comments are the most hilarious ones. Somebody said, why wouldn't he say that? He's done what he needed to do. Now it's time for him to go. Why wouldn't he say that? Why would it bother him? It won't bother him one little bit. Okay, so last week, the World Health Organization issued a global alert over 4 branded off-cough syrups, saying they could be linked to acute kidney damage, following reports from the Gambia of children diagnosed with serious kidney problems. Laboratory analysis of the syrup confirms that they contain unacceptable amount of dilethene glycol and ethylene glycol as contaminates, which according to the World Health Organization. The Indian authorities and the cough syrup manufacturer, Maiden Pharmaceuticals, say that these syrups have been exported to the Gambia only. Now, this is what I want to really look at. This particular pharmaceutical company, the manufacturers, they've been blacklisted. In 2011, they were blacklisted for selling syrup failing to meet local standards or national standards, let alone international standards. So yesterday, I did a bit of research into this and to get a clear picture to understand how this ended up in the Gambia. And in my research, I found out that it was actually a company known as Atlantic pharmaceuticals based in Atlanta were the ones that exported these cough syrups to the Gambia. Now, my question is, how can medicine get into a country without the country doing its due diligence? So in as much as we would want to blame the pharmaceutical companies, the manufacturer and the pharmaceutical company that exported this to the Gambia, we must also question the Gambian Food and Drugs Authority. We must. And this is why, I've said this in the past because I don't know whether you're aware, but a couple of years ago, I had a really, really bad experience, with the healthcare system in Ghana. And then even going to the shops to buy medicines, right? Just the average medicines. I understand that they're different brands, okay? So the costs may vary. But for instance, just one medicine, there are different prices. It has nothing to do with brands. Let's say, for instance, if you wanted to buy paracetamol, or you wanted to buy cocodamol, or maybe Nurofen. Let's say Nurofen, because Nurofen is a bit, what do you call it? It's a combination, isn't it? I understand that Nurofen will probably cost more. But you're buying paracetamol, the same paracetamol, have different prices. And then you realize that here in the UK, they're very, very stringent in terms of the medication and the supplies. Not to say that in the past the UK have not also encountered such criminal activities. I think it was it in the 50s or was it the 70s, where there was a lot of patients that needed blood transfusion, and the blood that were brought into the UK came from the US. And in the end, the patients that were given the blood transfusion, a lot of them were infected with HIV. So, this is not just peculiar to the continent of Africa. However, and I'm sure since in the UK have done the due diligence, right? This cannot keep happening. And when it comes to the health sector, this particular sector, I think that a lot of the countries in Africa, there's so many loopholes, because this should not happen in the 21st century. This should not happen. This should not happen. And then you have the government come out to say that, look, we'll do all we need to do to find it. I mean, look, we know who the corporates are. You should make sure that at your end, you do your due diligence. You do your due diligence. The medication did not just suddenly appear. And our reports are saying that, the cough syrups also made its way into Nigeria and other Western African countries. And we must say this. This is the truth. Somebody somewhere is taking a brown envelope, okay, to overlook and letting these medicines flood into the market. Somebody somewhere is doing it. And this is what happens. We cannot hide the fact that this is what is happening. And we must look at ourselves and take responsibility. We cannot, and I say this, in as much as the manufacturers will be blamed, the pharmaceutical company that exported this medication to the Gambia also needs to be held accountable. The Gambian authorities also must be held accountable. If they did do their due diligence, they would have known that A, the manufacturers had been blacklisted. 2, they would have realized that this medication was below standard, and it's actually detrimental to the health of children. Sometimes we talk, and we're just speechless. You're just speechless. This is just common sense, and somebody somewhere has taken a bribe. I put my head above the parapet to say that. because I don't understand how this can easily flood into the market without anybody spotting this. And India produced a lot of medicine to the globe. All right, let's take a caller. Hello.
Hello.
Kofi.
This is Kofi Ali. Yes.
Good morning, sir. What would you like to say?
You know what I want to say.
Yes.
You know everything I want to say. And I've always blamed our media and the journalists.
Why?
They are not honest people. Totally dishonest. When you follow international law, it's very, very clear. The manufacturer of any product is responsible for protecting his own products and making sure what gets into the market is what he has promised to sell. There is a contract between the buyer and the seller.
Yeah.
The role of the buyer is, this is my money. I have a problem. I want it solved. The role of the seller, who is the manufacturer, I'm taking your money to give you exactly what I promised to give you, which is what you want to make you. You are not well in this case, and we want to heal you. That is what they are giving the license to produce. Now, when we are in the middle of it, looking for who to blame and who not to blame and searching for what is obvious, how fair are we here? How fair? The importer, the person who is importing, whoever he is, he's not a manufacturer. His address is not even on the product. The address of the manufacturer is on the product, not the address of the importer. So when you go into the shop and you pick the item on the box, you will see this is produced here, A, B, C, D, E, F. Are you then expecting the person in the Gambia who has gone into a shop to buy, or where it is coming in, to go and then start saying that, oh, now let us, yes, if they take the item and they can only take sample, you understand, to the laboratory to go and check whether that thing meets standard or not. And if they do that, then at the point where the thing has come into the country, they will then try to remove everything they can from the shelves. But in the first place, the one who issued the license, remember, you can't produce medication without being issued a license. You can run a pharmaceutical company before you produce a product.
You're talking as if everything is done accordingly where we come from. It is not.
What about where it comes from?
It is not. No. I'm saying that where we come from. You're talking as if
you're things are not done right.
Exactly, and that's my point.
You don't get me. Because where we come from, things are not right. That is why they said the manufacturer must do the thing right. Are you going to say things are not right where we come from? Are you saying that the content that was consumed inside was produced in West Africa?
The content that was produced inside was produced in India. Now, if they would hold on, but if they would have done the due diligence, they would have realized that this particular manufacturer have been banned, has been blacklisted back in 2011, was subject to legal proceedings by India's drug regulator in 2018 for quality control violations, failed a quality control test in Jammu and Kashmir state in 2020. So what are you talking about, Kofi?
So wait. Someone has been banned. Do not produce again. The license has been withdrawn.
Yes.
Is that not true? So the factory is shut down. That is what when they ban you, they must ensure your factory, your producing process.
It's also among nearly 40 Indian pharmaceutical companies blacklisted by Vietnam for exporting substance. No, Kofi, you cannot shift the blame. I know where you're going. You cannot shift the blame.
Look.
Yes.
So you want now what you are saying is that we have lost our children and we should go and sit down and fold our arms and be sleeping.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we need to do our due diligence. We need to do our due
patient,
diligence.
be
We
patient.
cannot overlook that fact.
Be patient.
I am patient.
If we can produce this item and make the standard, right? We ourselves, we wouldn't go and buy it from Indians.
Of
you know
course
that.
not. Yeah.
Job for our children, job for us. However, we cannot. We have serious problem inside where we are. We all know.
Yeah.
Then we said, okay, this is why there is import. This is why there's import. The source is their job. They are convincing the world that they can meet the standard and they can control the pharmaceutical companies. And that's why they issue and withdraw license. Now, they have withdrawn the license of these particular people, so they've done their job. How are we not even sure that the brown envelope was not in India being exchanging hands for them to produce? The Indian government themselves collaborated with them to export it to us. That is the issue here.
No, Kofi, hold on. Kofi, hold on, please. Listen, I understand what you're saying. Listen to this, right? Imagine this. Somebody has something that is lethal. And before this can cause mayhem, it needs to gain access into your market. Now, you need to do your due diligence. If you fail to do your due diligence and it finds its way into your market, you need to be held responsible as well. And for all we know, if this is happening, what else could potentially be happening?
Oh, so we have lost here. Don't forget. In every event when something goes wrong, you understand? In this case, we remember, we also have a part to play for our children not to die. Nobody can intentionally put what is dangerous in their mouth so that it will kill them. Can you see? But so we have been punished, isn't it? For losing 66 children or 65, is that not punishment enough?
It is.
Good. So we have suffered for consuming what is wrong. That is our punishment for not being responsible enough to check the items as they are coming in, and then having the weaker system that doesn't allow us to be able to do it effectively. Can you see? What about the Indians? What is their punishment? Or they don't have any punishment? Are you telling me it's the buyer beware? No more the seller, the manufacturer.
No, I agree.
That's
but I'm
what
saying
you're
that
doing.
no, that's not what I'm doing. It's not what I'm doing. I'm saying
We
that
have
in as much
patient.
as I said this earlier, Kofi, that in as much as yes, we hold the manufacturers accountable, we must also bear responsibility of what's happened.
Oh. Nobody's arguing that. Nobody. The most important thing here is that we are dead. The rest of us that are left is what we want to do something. And you are saying we shouldn't about where the problem came from.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
So let us talk about where the problem
I'm not saying that at all. Of course, we know where the problem came from. We know where the problem came from, Kofi.
So what do we do to them?
What do you mean? What do we do to them? Well,
that is what we want to do.
Well, listen to this. The Gambian government has said that it will do take the necessary steps to make sure that this issue gets resolved. Now, this will probably end up being a diplomatic. Well, it is a diplomatic issue, but that does not take away.
Did you say
it will have to be a diplomatic issue? How else?
Who said so?
How else?
You see, you are getting totally things wrong.
How?
This is a legal issue. There is a life. A crime has been committed. Somebody has lost their life.
Ovi, do you know, listen, reading the reports yesterday, that even though the Indian government are saying that they're going to deal with this properly, some reporters are also saying that the Indian government is not really going to do anything to these pharmaceutical companies. So what do you think is really going to happen?
That is what I like hearing. And we are prepared for that. Do you know the quantity of goods that are coming from India to West Africa?
Well, they produce over 1/3 of the medication that we consume.
Good. And some of them are coming from legitimate certified and reliable firms. And they, by so doing, we are creating jobs for them. Is that not true?
Yeah.
Good. So they have a lot to lose if we can do something about even that one that is legitimate. Now, see, they didn't check the rest And that is what caused this problem. And we are the victims. God knows how many people in India are dying too from this same thing. You think it's only coming to Gambia? It's also going to India itself. Their own people, they are still producing while the Indian government has withdrawn the license. It means the Indian government cannot handle her own industries.
All right,
India.
we will continue this conversation tomorrow, Kofi, because I'm being told we actually ran out of time. So we'll continue this conversation tomorrow, Kofi.
Yeah? So please, there's something we can do. We are not going to sit down for this thing to go down the way you want it to go down. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll come to the end of the show. The next show coming on is the Legal Hour. Make sure you stay tuned. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Please accept my apologies, not being able to read the text messages today. And we shall continue tomorrow. Wherever it is that you find yourself doing today, make sure you look after yourself and stay safe. We'll be back tomorrow, God willing. And tomorrow we'll have more time to talk to you. So do stay tuned.
What you do me, you don't try. You told me, baby, we outside. I fed yet in a bay, I'm sorry, na can't be tell me why. And then you know me a day online, waiting for your text, so I know fi I. Nkaba mami post a goodbye. I didn't yanchi, I want my style, but I forgive you. Na kwa ukwe, ya me fa ukras, yeah. You don't say I got you. And stop crying, jai sweet. Sleep well, my lover. I will be fine, my lover. And my love for you be forever. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wako seke teke. I didn't run me out for me dead. See me panatin, I hear me say it. My brain, konya mede. Ojami wako seke teke. I didn't run me out for me dead.